Ladies and gentlemen, I'm assuming mostly gentlemen, this is a 2011 BMW X5 xDrive35d, and the D stands for diesel. Now, unfortunately, BMW no longer offers this engine in any vehicle in the US market anymore, but I still think it's worth reviewing this particular car because what we have here is the future that we could have had. This is a solid, heavy, four-wheel drive, mid-sized SUV with 265 horsepower, 425 torque, extremely satisfying performance. 146 mile per hour top speed that I got a legit 33 miles per gallon on the highway out of last night.
That is unbelievable.
So we could have had cool diesels like this that could go 600 miles on the highway on one tank and put smiles on our faces, but instead we got plug-in hybrids that people probably don't charge very much and a bunch of egg-shaped Tesla Model X's running around. By the way, Elon, very creative model name. Where did you ever think of that from? Duh. So what I'm going to do for you today is review this car. We're going to talk about the engine and the transmission. Since this is an 11-year-old BMW with 178,000 miles on it, we're going to talk about BMW longevity and reliability. We're going to look at the cargo room, we're going to look at the passenger space, and we'll look at the features that came on this relatively well-loaded 2011 X5. Now, as always, if some of that sounds good and some of it sounds boring, check the description below for timestamps. Now we're going to start under the hood, which is probably my favorite thing about this particular X5. This is the engine that BMW calls their M57Y Twin Turbo. It is a twin turbo 3-liter turbo diesel. This was the only version of this engine that they offered in the US market, but there were many different versions of it overseas. In this particular tune, it puts out 265 horsepower and 425 torques. It was only mated to a 6-speed automatic with all-wheel drive in the X5 models, and it's rated at 19 miles per gallon city and 26 miles per gallon highway, although I blew that highway number out of the water last night when I did a little fuel economy drive with it. Now, as far as the transmission goes, it should be noted that the E70 chassis X5, which is what this car is, was the first BMW to use their sort of joystick shifter. Back when it came out, which was 2007, everyone compared it to a Nokia cell phone, which is a very dated reference now, and that's one of those pieces of technology that BMW came out with first, everybody else made fun of, and then as soon as they got done making fun of it, they all copied it. So if you ever wondered why automatic transmission shifters got so weird and convoluted, you can blame or thank BMW. So now let's talk about BMW build quality and longevity, which can be kind of a sticky subject. Now, full disclosure, I've spent 15 or so years selling cars, and about a year and a half of that was on the new car showroom of a BMW dealer. So I have quite a bit of experience selling new BMWs, taking 3-year-old BMWs in as lease returns, which was incredibly common in that world, and taking a lot of BMWs in on trade on other kinds of cars. So there's always a few things that I look for on an old BMW, and this qualifies. It's a 2011, I'm filming this in 2022. Actually, when was the build date? This car was built, in June of 2010. It's an early 2011, and this is May of 2022. So this car is actually almost 12 years old, 1 month shy of being 12 years old, and it's got 178,000 miles on it. And for a BMW, or really for any car, I think, of this age and mileage, it's held up very well. One thing to always look for in a used BMW is the rubber seals around the windshield. These have a tendency to really crack and go bad. Sometimes after only a few years, I've seen 5-year-old BMWs where it's just shot. On this particular car, it looks very good. I don't know if it's been replaced, but it does look like this is an original BMW windshield. So if the windshield was replaced at some point, at least they had it done with a factory one. There's a lot I don't know about the history on this car because I rented it off at Turo. So it's possible that the owner has spent $50,000 at BMW dealers over the years having transmissions and everything replaced. And it's also possible that this is the finest car BMW ever built and all they've ever done is oil changes and regular maintenance. I don't know. But it is worth noting that whoever owns this vehicle seems to have taken very good care of it. If we use our iDrive system and we go down to vehicle info, we can have a look at vehicle status. And we can see that the engine oil level is good, service required, everything is okay, brake fluid, all this stuff looks good, and the next service is going to be in 5,000 miles, and the next oil change will be in 9,000 miles. Whenever I was taking a BMW in on trade, I would always go through this to see what was wrong with the car and be like, well, needs brake pads, needs an oil change, needs this or that. But this car doesn't need anything. It's in great shape. So one reason why it's probably lasted as well as it has is that the owner maintains it very well. But let's move on to the inside. Now, one issue with older BMWs, and it's slightly evident here, is some of the kind of touch points on the trim will start to peel and go away. I see a bit of that on the steering wheel, but it's not very noticeable. It almost looks like somebody has kind of tried to repair it somehow or paint over it to make it look less noticeable, but not a huge amount of this has gone on, again, for the age and the mileage of the car. On the climate control buttons, a lot of the times those really get funky over the years. With this one, the fan controls have rubbed off for some reason, but everything else is present and correct. The burl walnut wood trim on the doors, the alleged burl walnut wood trim, there's some cracking in the sort of plastic on the top of that, on all those pieces. That's normal. That happens to pretty much all of these things. But it should be noted that just about everything in here works. The power steering column works, the power seat works, the power rear liftgate works. The Bluetooth, for some reason, this car was equipped with factory Bluetooth. That doesn't work. I can't make that function, and it says that the BMW Assist has a malfunction that may be somehow related to the Bluetooth. But this particular BMW X5 was equipped with voice commands when it was built way back in June of 2010, and they work perfectly. Allow me to demonstrate. Radio.
You can say help or voice commands.
Voice commands.
Voice commands. CD and multimedia, radio, telephone, navigation, contacts, BMW Assist, vehicle info, or settings.
Radio.
I couldn't understand you.
Navigation.
You can say help or voice commands.
Help.
Voice commands, CD and multimedia, radio, telephone, navigation, contacts, BMW Assist, vehicle info, or settings.
Navigation.
I couldn't understand you.
See, it works exactly how it did when it left the factory. Also, this car came equipped with the Nevada leather seating, and I would say the leather has held up pretty well. It's a little bit jacked up on the driver's seat. It's kind of coming apart from the base of the seat there, but for the most part, the leather is in very good condition, and I would say that especially, again, considering the mileage, the interior has held up very well on this car. Now we're going to use our handy-dandy laser measuring tape and measure out the rear cargo room. So just for fun, I'm going to measure it with the third row seat up. And with the third row seat up and in place, you have 1 feet and 2 inches of cargo room from the back of the cargo area to the bottom of the third row seat. The width at the back of the cargo area there is 4 feet and 1 inch. So you do have some width in the cargo area, but with the third row seat up, you can see you almost have, If you have these headrests up so people can actually kind of sit there comfortably, there's almost no height to the cargo room. Basically, you can put a row of like Trader Joe's grocery bags there, but not a whole lot else. So the length of the cargo area from the rear to the bottom of the second row seat, when the second row is up, is 3 feet and 2 inches. The width of the cargo area at its absolute narrowest point in between those two little bits right there that are actually the armrests for your third row seat passengers is 3 feet and 4 inches. The length of the cargo area with the second row seat folded down, approximately 5 feet and 9 inches. Of course, that could change a little bit depending on where you have that first row seat set. The height of the cargo area, 2 feet and 10 inches. And if you need to lift something into the back of your BMW X5, you are going to have to lift it 2 feet and 8 inches. Now, just for fun, under here, there is a little bit of additional cargo space. The owner of this car has decided to put an empty orange juice bottle in there amongst a couple other things. A few little tools and stuff. This car did not come with a spare tire, so that's pretty much all you get back here. Now we're going to take a look at the passenger room, and it should be noted that this 2011 X5 was equipped with a third row seat from the factory. However, it's almost useless in my opinion. Certainly there's no way I could ever fit back there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can sit behind myself from the first row to the second row, and I'll show you how much room is in the third row. So let's do this. All right, as we can see, I can sit in the front just fine, sitting upright, plenty of headroom, knees not touching the dash. Oh look, that burled wood walnut doesn't have any cracks. That one does. And when I get in the back, my knees are kind of just barely up against the back seat, but I do have enough headroom. And it is relatively roomy back here. So let's look at the third row because I put it up. So there's the leg room, but that is when you have the second row seat moved all the way forward and the driver's seat is set to my position, so nobody could sit there unless they didn't have legs. And then this is when you have the second row seat moved back. The third row really is cramped in these. Even in the next gen X5s, which is what I sold new, they're just, people would want to see it, so we'd always have one in stock with the third row, and they'd come and see and go, I don't need that, what else do you have? So yeah, I haven't looked at the newest X5s, maybe the third rows are better in those, but the third row seat in this one, really not very useful. Now we're going to start talking about the convenience features, and I'm going to start in the back seat. This particular X5 was equipped with the rear climate package for an additional $900. This gives us the 4-zone automatic climate control, so we have dual zone in the front and dual zone in the second row, so the back seat passengers can select their own temperatures. We also have the manual rear sunshades right here, or as I like to call it, the Paris Hilton package. And it says privacy glass is part of this package as well, but I'm pretty sure privacy glass was standard on all BMW X5s in 2011, at least in the US market. It should be noted that even if you didn't get that rear climate package on one of these, it still would have had rear air vents. It just would have given you whatever the front passengers were doing. And this was way before USB ports in the back seat became common, but we do have a 12-volt power outlet, so the second row passengers can plug in some sort of phone charging device there and keep their phones charged up. Now we'll move up front and talk about the convenience features up here. And there are quite a few of them because this car came equipped with the premium package at a cost of $3,400. That included the universal garage door opener on the rear view mirror, along with the auto dimming mirror and the compass up there. It's got the power steering column, it's got the power tailgate, it's got the storage package, ambient lighting, the aforementioned Nevada leather, and Bluetooth, which no longer quite works. We also have, as a factory option on this particular car, the technology package, which would have set you back $2,800 back in 2011. That gives you the backup camera with the top view. So there's actually 3 cameras on this car, and you have the backup camera, which of course was optional back then. But the top view is pretty cool and actually quite modern for such an old car, because it does give you kind of a side view so that you can see, if you're parallel parking, what is around you. And it is relatively modern looking. This has obviously become more common and more advanced on newer cars, but it's pretty cool to see it on a 2011 model. We also have park distance control, which is just the radar parking sensors front and rear. We have the navigation system with the real-time traffic. So navigation did come included with the iDrive on this particular car. And it has the voice command system, which always works perfectly. Now we'll talk about just some kind of odds and ends that this car also has here. It does have heated front seats. I think those were standard on a diesel in 2011, but they may have been a $500 option. Don't quote me on that. Since the Bluetooth is not operable on this car, the Bluetooth audio streaming, which I believe it did have, doesn't work, obviously. But luckily, we have a CD player, and it has a hard drive. And of course, I own a copy of the Diesel Truckers CD by Cool Keith featuring Cutmaster Kurt, so I have been listening to that when I've been driving this around. And because I'm such a nice guy, I actually loaded it into the car's internal hard drive, so when I give it back to its owner when my Turo rental is done, they'll still be able to listen to such hits as the Diesel Truckers theme, Diesel Truckin', and my personal favorite, Kenworth with Wings. Now, as long as we're in a BMW, let's talk about the iDrive system, because it's something that everybody at least used to talk about. Now, this car has, I believe, the 3rd version of the more advanced version of iDrive that BMW ever offered. It's the more advanced version because this car does have the navigation system. And this is really when the iDrive became a usable product and relatively intuitive once you got the hang of the basic controls. You have the buttons to navigate to the CD, the radio, the menu, the phone, the navigation system, and you can turn the little knob and move it around. And once you have gone past the initial learning curve, it is relatively easy to use. If you've ever used one of the early iDrive systems from like a 745, they were atrocious. It was almost impossible to figure it out. But this system is much better, and of course now nobody really talks about iDrive because it's another one of those things that just about every automaker copied from BMW, and BMW themselves is going to touchscreens in their newer products. This X5 diesel also has a panoramic moonroof. I'll be honest, I tried to figure out if that would have been standard on a 2011 xDrive35d, and I don't know, that may have been an option on the diesel. It was for sure an option on a base 35i, but anyway, this one does have the pano roof. Another thing that this car has is the stupid, annoying, quote-unquote push-button start. So it has a key fob that looks like it might be the keyless access type of system, but it's not. You do have to use the buttons to lock and unlock the car to get in the door. That's fine, no big deal. But when you get in the car, you have to put the key in the slot, put your foot on the foot brake, and push that start-stop button. And that always annoyed me, because in Volkswagens and Audis, you would just put the key in the slot and push the key, and that was the button, and it was much cleaner. I don't know why BMW didn't just copy that. They went with the start-stop button. Maybe they were trying to be different, but that's something that's always kind of annoyed me about BMWs. Another thing that was unique to BMWs, or relatively unique and no longer is the center-mounted lock button. Now, when I was a BMW client advisor, which is their name for an automotive salesperson, of course you go through a lot of brand training, and BMW did more than most brands. And one story they told us is why they moved their lock button from that center single button onto the door with the lock and unlock button like every other auto manufacturer uses. So the story goes like this. Some lady somewhere in America leased a 3 Series. Her salesperson, her client advisor, didn't do a very good job explaining what this system did. So instead of pulling the door handle twice to let herself out, she'd pull it once, it wouldn't let her out, and then she'd push the lock button, which would block the door. She'd pull it again, and she repeated this for about 20 minutes until, I don't know how she ever got out of that car. Maybe she's still in it. But anyway, this story made it all the way up to BMW's headquarters in Germany, and that is why you no longer have that single center-mounted lock button. It is the dual lock and unlock button on the door like everybody else uses. And weirdly, that makes me kind of sad because the center lock button was something unique to BMW, and things that are unique to specific automakers are going away in general, and that's one that has gone away as well. Thank you so much for watching my review of this BMW X5 xDrive35d. I love diesel cars. I love this car mainly because it's a diesel. If it had a petrol engine, I really wouldn't care all that much. But I've really enjoyed my time with it. I hope you enjoyed my review. Please like my video, subscribe to my channel, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.